had to be hot, bad listener.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I'm sure it was not pleasant. So let's get back to where I was.
In the winter time, back would freeze to the fucking.
So, as I said earlier, so they would drive this out. You can see there what kind of coke looks like. It can be big too as well. And then they would have coke forks. Coke forks were like pitchforks. I don't have one actually, but they're pitchforks with a lot more pitches on them, and they're wider. They're probably about maybe yay wide. And they would take that and put it in the wheelbarrow. Yeah, right there in the corner. But they would take that and put it into the wheelbarrow, and then they would take the wheelbarrow and put it onto train cars. Which, when I did this presentation quite a few years ago, there was a gentleman that was into the Pennsylvania Railroad side of things, and he had documentation. I never went over to go see the guy, and I keep getting to, but he would say that because these coke cars were made out of wood, there were several times that these trains would go off down the track, and the oven wasn't quite cold, and the train would be on fire. So, but yeah, so like I said, now this was that standard. Now, like I said, now this is the manual method of doing that. This is just another better picture of what Larry's and Dinky's look like. This is actually out of Mammoth, PA. And this was prior to the explosion in 1891. So, because the photo that I got, the lady I got this photo off of, her great-great-grandfather died in it. And these were up in his attic. So, and he was visible in some of the photos. So this was definitely before 1891. Now, this is the mechanical side of pulling coke out. You guys can see that there's a conveyor, there's a hopper there. Some had a mechanical rig that would go in and then pull it out into that. A lot of times it was still manual where they would pull it in. Think about it, you have to put it in the wheelbarrow, put it into the car. At that point, you're just pulling it out and putting it into the hopper, which goes to the conveyor. So this is the mechanical side of it. You guys can kind of see there. This guy kind of got the same thing going on that's in this photo. He has some kind of sling there with a bar going across with that puller going in and out of there. And here you can see there's an oven that's sealed up. So this is like the mechanical side of it. So, yeah, Carpentertown had beehive ovens and they had rectangular ovens. Rectangular ovens were the bee's knees, if you want to call it that. Made everything completely simple, completely easy. If you have rectangular ovens, you're getting off on easy street. This is kind of a, I'm going to kind of get off the road. This is a section view of the rectangular oven. Their ovens, as I'm saying, they are rectangular. Now, what makes it different? You got openings on both sides. You got openings on one side and you got openings on another. What happens though is on this side, you have something they call a pusher. So basically, once that front was taken down, they would take that pusher and that would push all that coke through the oven into a hopper, which that hopper then would put it into the rail car. A lot more easier than trying to break it out and everything. You guys can kind of see how that looks down into here. This was taken out at Carpentertown. These guys are standing on a pusher. These are probably from the 40s. These photos are from the 40s. The Larry cars have been electrified, so there's no dinghies up there driving them back and forth anymore. They have wires up there where they just kind of move by their own self. Carpentertown is interesting with these rectangular ovens because you can see right over here, there's a steel door here that goes up to this track. They would still seal that door, but I think what they would do is they would move that metal door over it to kind of give it more of a seal. So that was kind of interesting because they could just move that door to whatever oven that they were working on. And then this should be this is the back side of it. Once again, this is on the back side of the rectangular oven. The coke would be coming out, put into that goes there, and there should be a rail car right there awaiting the coke. And that is how rectangular ovens work. You still had to quench them with water and such, but it was a lot more easy manual group of guys right outside Carpentertown. Mr. Hare should be in here somewhere. Mr. George Hare is one of these guys. I want to say he's this guy right here. That's the gentleman that I got him the photos off of. That would have been his grandfather. But you can see how the ovens were sealed and the cart system that they used there. Like I said, this is all at Carpentertown. If I go the right way. I'm not going to get too much into this gentleman. There is numerous books written about him. If you want to go read about him, you go right ahead and read about him. My feelings on Mr. Frick are mutual. I don't view him as an enemy. I don't view him as a friend, though, either. I view him as a CEO, as the top of the company. Nobody likes their CEO, let's be honest. So a little bit that I'm going to say about him right now is he was born December 19th, 1849. He was born over in West Overton, Pennsylvania. He died December 2nd, 1919. He was the grandson of whiskey baron Abraham Overholt. He worked at his Uncle Mark Overholt's store in Mount Pleasant as a teenager. He borrowed $10,000 at 21 from the Melvin family to build 50 coke ovens in Broadford. He began to build his empire during the Panic of 1873. So, when he started to begin building his empire, I think it was from somebody earlier today, maybe so much now in this section, but as you keep getting closer to Mount Pleasant, that coal seam keeps getting bigger and bigger. In Mount Pleasant, we had the coal seam was floating around between 9 to about, I think it was between 9 to 15 feet, somewhere in that ballpark. When you go a little bit that's one word. When you go a little bit more south, it shrinks a little bit. When you go up more north, like towards Latrobe and everything, it shrinks a little bit more. Mount Pleasant was kind of that, Mount Pleasant spot now was kind of that sweet spot with that coal seam. So when Frank started to expand his empire, he knew that Mount Pleasant was on his list of things to do and things to get. Luckily, though, for Mr. Frick, there was a sale at Standard. The Hutchison brothers owned it. They got too old. They wanted out of the business. So, what did Frick end up getting when he bought Standard? He ended up getting one slope and one shaft entrance. Now, when I say one shaft entrance, this is not the famous Standard shaft that it is today. This was the African American shaft entry at the mine. So Standard only had at that point just the slope and the African American entry. He bought 150 workers' houses, which is low and high street. The plant only had 576 coke ovens at that particular time. It had a 45,000 barrel water reservoir pump house included. That's a still, folks. Asking price, only $800,000. But there's more. He also got something that was very interesting in the coke field. You guys might have never seen one of these. There was a little bit of experimentation in the coke field. As I told you guys, they would pull the coke out of the ovens and such. There was guys out there that believed that you could crush coke and sell it as its own industry, similar to the anthracite crushers that were over on the eastern side of the state. So this is actually a coke crusher. There was only 4 of them in the coke region. Standard had 1 of them. And I think there was 125 ovens that fed this beast alone. Now, the coking process was still the same. You would quench the coke, draw it out, but the problem is you didn't go to the foundries with it or the steel mills. You took it, it rode this elevator shaft the whole way up to the tippy top, and then there was different crushers and shakers and stuff like that. The idea behind the coke crusher was that you could sell nugget-sized coke, you could sell this size coke, you could sell this size coke for different industries, for blacksmithing, or for this, or for that, or whatever. It stayed around for a little while. Like I said, there was only 4 in the region. Material on it's very light. I bump into it every now and then, but booklets or pamphlets on it, or even articles that pop up on the coke or on the crushed coke side of it, it's very light. supposedly this one burned down, but I have not been able to confirm that as of right now. And I found that out about 2 months ago. So, but yeah, that is the code crusher at standard. As I said earlier, this is the slope house at standard, and a lot of this stuff applies to other mines in the area. Standard just happens to be what I have a lot of photos of. Like I said, this is where Kosciuszko is. This would have been part of the original purchase that Frick would have made. You can see there's a guy down there drawing out ovens. This over in here is actually the blacksmith house right there. So there's that, and then this here is what it looked like at the bottom of the slope entry. There was brick. You can see the cable to the car right there to take it up into the slope. And the standard was about 300, which makes sense because once Frick built standard shaft was about 350, I believe. Rick's postcard here. This here, like I said, this here's the blacksmith house. This is interesting here. On Wednesday, December 18, 1889, a little after 3 o'clock in the morning, a fire completely destroyed the slope building. Now don't go ooh and all about that because the slope building was on fire so many times at standard, I lost count after 10. So this is one of the multiple fires at the slope building. The long blowing of the whistle at the fan house was not accepted as an alarm, as it was about the usual time for it to blow for work. And it was not until the B&O engineers in the yards below began to toot that people were aroused and started coming out to see what the heck was going on. But it was then too late to do anything, for the flames were busting through the roof, and before 4 o'clock, only smoldering embers remained. The machine shop and blacksmith building stood just across the public road, which this here's Slope Hill Road in Mount Pleasant, that would run literally right here. Right in between this and that. The public road from the slope has suffered its fate, although nearly all the machinery was saved. Superintendent Robert Ramsey had made a very narrow escape from being crushed to death by one of the chimneys in the blacksmith shop from suddenly toppling over. The big stack was so cracked by the heat that Superintendent Ramsey had it blown down with dynamite Wednesday afternoon, requiring 36 sticks of explosives for it to come down. That thing was built to last. The Ramseys were no joke either. They were a mining engineer family here in the Coke region, and they worked their way up the ranks, if you want to call it that. And when they engineered things very, very correctly, and they engineered very good things to last for a very long time. I work as a custodian over at Ramsey Elementary, and I'm telling you something right now. That building's never coming down. Just the way that it is.
So the workers were obviously out of luck when there were accidents, explosions, fires, but how was it for the owners to insure these places?
Well, I can answer that for you. I just picked this up last year. Glad you asked that question. I can actually answer that for you. I'll read it as it hung in one of the plans.
What's the question?
About the relief for workers, like how the like money relief, stuff like that.
Well, I was actually asking about the properties going back before workers had prayer of getting anything.
What do you mean by that? If they were like hurt?
Since there were always fires and explosions, were they able to insure the business and the property?
Oh yeah. Businesses and stuff are always completely insured and stuff. They rebuilt in no time. Trust me, they rebuilt it very quickly. But I mean, if we want to get into the whole, funds for the workers and stuff, because a lot of guys did get hurt and stuff like that. This here is dated 1884, and this is the relief fund for the H.C. Frick Co. Company. Each and every employee will be required to support this fund as one of its conditions upon which it enters the employee of the company. Distributions will be made by committee of 11 persons, 2 of whom will be selected by us, and 9 by the employees of various works as follows. Standard has one committee man, Norwood has one committee man, Tars and Stonerville have one committee man, Valley and Tip Top one committee man, Davidson one committee man, Schroeder one committee man, Summit to Morgan, inclusive, 2 committee men, Broadford one committee man. Boston will not be eligible as committee men from the works. Following shall be regulations for management of the fund. Levy 25 cents per month on every employee. Benefits. For 2 weeks disability or more, $5 per week shall be paid after the first week. Benefits to cease after 26 weeks from date of accident. Yeah. Disability must be from actual casualty of the lines, not from injury, from strain, or otherwise that may be due to weak condition of the body. Beneficiaries will be prohibited from doing any work unless specially permitted by the whole committee. In case of loss of limb, the full amount of $125 may be payable at any time. At the discretion, $75 more may be paid toward getting an artificial limb. Death. To the widow of or legal heirs, $100 will be paid when a member dies from accident, and $50 when death is from natural causes. Notice of accident must be given to committee men within 3 days after the accident. Committee men for each year to be selected on December payday of the preceding year. In case of vacancy occurring on the committee, such vacancy will be filled on the payday following. In the event of any of our employees being killed while working for us, this company will contribute to the relief of their families an equal amount of that payment from the relief fund. In accordance from that above, the employees in our works are requested to select their committeemen by the year of 1885 on the next payday. HC for Code Company. So you had that for the workers.
Okay?
Yeah, I think that's what
And
it.
they get paid, what, once a week?
Yes, Kathy, that would be correct.
And how much did they make in a week?
It all depended on how many cold cars they filled up.
25 cents is a lot of money.
Well, from what I understand, one of the conditions for employment was the worker had to pay between $100 and $150 to the company for an insurance policy. And if he got hurt, injured, or killed, or whatever, they just really deducted that from that $150 and returned that to the family like they did at the Dark Line. That's what they did there. And the company said, oh, we'll pay for the coffins, and we paid for all the burials, 325 times, but they didn't. They really deducted that burial, that coffin, from the insurance policy, gave it to that. If you could prove that was your husband, if you can't speak English, and there's no way to identify the body with the remains, what you do is letting him. You know, you get on training, and you go back to the old country, or you go back to where you came from, you know.
Or marry somebody else and end up in a different patch.
Yeah, I gotta marry somebody else.
Yeah.
If he was one of the surviving miners in my schools, you did say because you was a black cat. Everybody got killed except you. So you went to the next mine, you kept quiet on with it.
So, as you guys can see, so this is going from the slope entrance and standard, marching its way towards the soon-to-be-built new standard shaft that Ramsey would end up sinking for the freight company. So you can just see how many ovens this here is probably more likely a block because Standard only ever had one bank of coke ovens that I know of, and it wasn't very big. All the ovens in Standard were block. So once Frick put more ovens into that plant, the slope hoisted the coal for 173 ovens of the 905 in the plant self-oven. They kept adding more coal lands until the total acreage reached 3,000 acres. It was decided to put down a second shaft, so work commenced in the fall of 1885. This is also towards the slope entrance as well. This is the shaft. There was people from Germany who would actually come over here just to see this thing operate because of what Ramsey, I'm going to tell you guys some things that Ramsey did to it. In May of 1886, they reached the coal at 305 feet, at a point at which the water from the entire mine would drain. The distance from the bottom of the shaft to the centers of the sheave wheels, which these are the sheave wheels up here, so the center of those, easy, is 336 feet. In January of 1886, '87, the new standard shaft had just been completed and put in operation. Mr. Robert Ramsey designed the operation, as I told you guys. Now, this is what makes this really cool. This is actually called the Ramsey, what do they call it? Ramsey pusher, I think is what it was called. When a wagon of coal is hoisted, it is forced to the cage by a steam lamp, runs on a grade to the tipple, and again on a grade pointing directly behind the shaft to a transfer truck, where by means of a steam cylinder it is raised to the level of the cage and is pushed by the ramp to the cage and on it, at the same time driving the loaded wagon on its way to the tipple. So, let me demonstrate that with my hands like I always do. This is a coal car. Coal car comes up. The way that steam command acted, it would push this going towards the coal bin. That would go where it needed to. By the same time, there's already an empty car behind that. This would go up accordingly, so nothing else would come back on it. Would push an empty car onto it, and then down and back went. Those coal cars only lasted a couple seconds up there, and that was it. There was no waiting for coal cars. As soon as one got off that elevator, boom, the next empty was on it, and it was already going down. That's basically what it transfers into. The bin, which is this part right here, the bin has a capacity of 450 tons. It is made in 3 sections that 3 layers can be coaled at the same time from it. There being beneath it a center and 2 side tracks. The foundation walls are of cut stone or the most substantial build. Let me make sure. Okay, we'll go back. Now let's talk about the engine house, that's this particular structure right here, behind there. Nope, I take it back. The engine house is this structure right here. It's no longer standing. It just got demolished, unfortunately, a couple of years back ago. The engine house is 55 by 38 feet. Also, the brick stands immediately back of the shaft, and from its foundation, long timbers run to the head frame of the shaft. Okay, I lied. It's this one. I lied. Long timbers run to the head of the frame of the shaft, thus taking all the strength from the taller building when drawn into the cages. Within the motor house, there are 2 monster engines made by the Vulcan Ironworks of Wilkes-Barre. They are direct-acting 30-inch cylinders and 48-inch stroke. The drum, brake, and indicators all being made from the drum furnished by Mr. Ramsey himself. The drums are concealed, roped for 1 1/4 inch iron rope, the diameters being 12 and 10 foot respectively. Contrary to the usual custom, the larger diameters of these drums have been placed to the center, not only giving more power to the brakes, but at the same time placing the center of each drum on the same vertical plane with the sheave wheels at the top of the head frame, allowing for each rope as a direct lead. So basically what this is basically saying, this is all from Miner's report. Basically what this is saying is, if you can imagine like a rim on a car, so your outer rim's always a little bit bigger, then it gets tinier and tinier inside the car. The drums inside this engine house are completely different. It's bigger at the center, it gets smaller as you go towards the ends. That gives the rope more of a direct drive down into the shaft, and you're not replacing the brakes as much and stuff like that on those drums. And this is the interesting thing to it too. And there's a reason why Ramsey did this. The 1.25-inch rope could last up to 2 years before being replaced, hauling 3-ton cars. All these other mines in the code regions were hauling up 2-ton. Standard was hauling up 3-ton cars. Well, the same rope at other plants needed replaced every 8 months, only hauling 2-ton cars. It will require 30 seconds to hoist, dump a wagon of coal, or 1,200 wagons for a run of 12 hours. A total of 2,500 to 3,000 tons of coal. Standard has 634 ovens now, making it the largest plant in the region. Standard would end up growing up to about 900 about 906. There's local board in Mount Pleasant, there was 999. And that frick they put the extra oven in there to pay taxes and all this stuff. I don't believe that. I actually think that there was over 1,000 because of the building standards. Mammoth was going to put in over 1,000. And the newspaper article that I read said there was grading to put in over 1,000 standard. And some of the books that Frick had published later on for Old Home Week, like in Mount Pleasant, he had it published in those books that there was 1,000. So if he was trying to pay taxes, I don't think he'd be printing that. So, yeah, there was a little bit of competition going on there, but like I told you folks, this was one of the most modern mines in the world. And here too, to answer your question from earlier, yes, some of the guys would ride this down here, but most of them also rode, there was a separate shaft over here too that they would take wagons and the mules and stuff like that, because the mules lived underground too. And a lot of times the mules went underground and they never came back up. They died down there and then they got back up to be buried. So, this is what the bottom of the shaft looks like as standard. Here's Larry Carter's being waited to be hoisted there. There's the dinghy there. Like I said, unfortunately, this building had seen its better days when my dad's neighborhood bought it, and unfortunately, it had to be torn down. And that's what it looks like today. That's all. Oh, and this is actually now gone. So, but yeah, I'm lucky I got that photo when I did. And you see, largest coke works, not just in the United States, but in the world. As I said, people from Germany and stuff will come over just to see this thing operate.
Question.
And as I can see, you can see the different rows of houses I was talking about here. This is actually my parents' house. It's still here. On this little side note, Aunt Lil also told me about the good old honey dippers.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that doesn't know what it is, do you want to take a guess what a honey dipper is? So she would tell me right where this little wooden slide is over in here. That's where the honey pile was. Right, it was right over there. I told her one day, I'm like, well, I'll go looking for it. She goes, I don't think you want to go looking for it, Gene. So, but which was actually the honey dippers. For those who don't know, they pretty much they're porta potty people today, pretty much. The outhouses here would actually have concrete areas underneath that you would go into, and once a week, according to my dad's neighbor, the honey dippers had a song. I haven't been able to find it yet.
Once a week? You must have been like...
Well, up in the patch, yeah, they came through about once a week, Bruce said. And they would start way on the other end of the patch. They would start singing their song, and you knew to go get out your money to go pay them because they were coming down. So,
it's terrible.
oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure.
I stood out there a couple of times to see what they were doing.
Yeah.
I said, man, I don't know, they had no respirator or nothing, no gloves. It was right in that stuff, and was sucking it out of there, you know, in a stinky truck.
And then this building no longer exists. Standard actually had, a lot of these mines actually, believe it or not, had bathhouses. Standard was one of the more modern ones. They actually had a punch bowl in the middle of it for their miners. And then here's another picture of that you can see all the Larry cars sitting down here. And this is a little bit more definitive of you can see the other rows and stuff. Now supposedly, I got to look into this, but there was another two, and I know this for a fact, there was another set of row houses that went back this way. They went different than these. There was a gentleman that told me that that's where the African Americans had lived, and there was stores for them like right where that was. Those supposedly got taken down in 1936 and were taken to roads in town. I just never checked the newspaper article to confirm what Dawn had told me. But this is another picture of the patch.
Back alley though, because all the outhouses are lined up together.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the back alley. It still exists there.
This
Yeah.
side is the back alley.
Yeah.
Front side is the other side. This is the side.
This is after, of course, 1938 or so, because this is the steel tipple, as I said, from the King Koch brothers. And you can see how much of a difference that tipple looked like compared to the wooden tipple that Frickin had. bathhouse, powerhouse, lamp house, compressor house. I don't know what happened to that building, but it's gone. I can't remember from Conrad, but they said this building ended up getting turned into a fire station at one point in time, from what Conrad had told me. And something that Conrad had told me, this is the lamp housing standard. And this shows you how smart Ramsey actually was. If you look here at the corners, if you notice something, these brick are different color, don't mind the windows. But if you look at the corners, the brick are different colors than the rest of the building. Ramsey figured out that instead of just having one main door like this, in and out of here, that if you put 4 revolving doors on all 4 corners of the building, it would relieve congestion. And that was told to me by Conrad, and sure enough, in some of the mining reports, it was actually reported in the mining report, so I was able to confirm what Conrad had told me. So in all 4 corners of this building, which was Lamp House, there was revolving doors. And then around 1910, Franklin and them decided they were going to build Standard 3, which is out towards Middle Churches. You can see here, this here is a fan house here. This was a still temple, and what made this interesting though was this was the first shaft that was lined with concrete. Most of your shafts that were dug would use big timbers on the side to line the sides up when they went down. So, and what's also unique to its standard is, so the Standard 3 had the big fan, Standard 1 had the big fan, but there was no big fan at the standard shaft. Most of your mines, when you build a mine, you have your slope, your temple, whatever you need, and then you have a fan house attached to that to get the fan and the air moving down in the mine. The fans at Standard, at 1 and 3, were so massive. I think the one at 1 was one of the largest ones in the Coke region at the point, at the time, that they didn't need a fan at number 2. Because they had enough cubic air moving through that they didn't need one at number 2. So, and this here's a close-up photo of it. Supposedly, once again, from Dawn, and I began reading a little bit of it in the papers, they were supposed to put ovens at number 3, they never did. They only hauled waste and stuff out of the line there. And I believe, from reading some newspaper articles, that's where the 2 row houses that Donnie had told me about, that's where the African Americans went, because you wouldn't waste hauling slate out of the mine on your Polish workers and your Italians and stuff like that. So they gave it to the African Americans. So I got to do a little bit more digging into that, but my theory on that is shaping up to be fairly accurate. And this is another example of a fan house down at Moorwood. It's a different style of fan house. In 1910, in Mount Pleasant, there was a celebration called Old Home Week. This arch was made at Standard. It's made completely out of coke. And it had 300 electric lights in it. It's 5 feet on each side before it starts arching over. The superintendent at the time of mine, his name was James Mack. And I think it took him workers almost 2 weeks to construct that. It was for a week-long celebration in town. So that's it during the day, and that's sort of lit up at night. Now, Connellsville had one down here, and it had pillars on all 4 corners up to one point. And I found out later on, it actually lit up as well, too. So, Franklin was big into electricity in the mines and stuff, so they were kind of showcasing that. Now, I'm going to leave you guys with a couple different interesting things. So when I started, and this is just too interesting not to share with you folks. When I started, as I said, I was a custodian, I worked second shift at one of my schools. One of my old teachers, when I got into this, she's like, you got to go interview this lady my mom does. Her name's Virginia Murphy. I'm like, cool beans, I'll go interview her, whatever. Well, Virginia had told me about the story how she was born. She was born in a cloth center. Here she said that there was an ice storm that ended up shutting down the trolley line, and they had to lower her midwife over at Whitney, and she had to walk underground and all that. Here one day I was looking in the newspaper, and sure enough, these are the articles or the advertisements that West Penn had put in the newspaper, and it was thanking people for their patience and stuff during this giant ice storm. But instead of me telling you guys the story, I'll just have Virginia tell it to you guys. Give me 1 minute here, because I had to download this offline. online, so we may have to, if you guys bear with me for 1 minute. No, we're not going to do that.
And Virginia Murphy, our House and Law Center, is April 4th, 2019. Virginia is here to tell me the story of how she was born. So I'll let Virginia have the floor.
Okay, this is very exciting after all these years. But I was born in Hofstadter, and we had a big ice storm, and no doctors, and my great good grandmother was a midwife, and she came over from Germany. And she came through the coal mine. She got in the mine at Whitney and walked from Whitney to Hofstadter and delivered me. And that was 95 years ago, and I'm very proud to be here.
Virginia would end up dying 3 years later, unfortunately. I gave that to her daughters. Her daughters didn't realize I did that. And they were very thankful for that. She was a very interesting lady, very interesting. So, let's see if this does anything wacky on it. So, two things here before I shut the presentation down. I always get asked by people, is there a list? Is there a ledger? You know, somebody died in a mine explosion. Maybe you got his information. Short answer, no, not really. As I told you guys earlier, Ray's site contributed to the mining site. If you had a question about mining, whether it be Crucible or Sand or Bridgeport or whatever, you could find it on his site. Now, Ray's site had a different thing at the end of it. It had a thing on there. It's called the Miners Memorial. If you click on that, if Ray found a name in a newspaper from an accident or something like that, by chance, he would put it on there. Over COVID, the state got some money, and these suckers are now digitalized. These are on microfilm. I have a few of these on the cable over there. They're mining certificates. These are a little bit later from 37, but if you do the math, 1937, some of these guys, according to these certificates, they got, 20, 30 years experience in the coal mining field, so they're in there in the heydays. It took me 3 weeks to download this off of the state's website. There is 85,000 names that are waiting for me. And I'm telling you guys this because I'm not trying to fluff myself up or anything, but I just think it's something interesting. But when you look, these cards hold so much information. Name, some have age, their address, their cert number, which should match whatever that is, their app number, the date of issue, employed by, and the mine that they worked at. Some would even have their birth dates on it and stuff like that. I'm currently taking those and I'm putting them up into Google. Google will run what they call an OCR. That's what makes stuff searchable. Not only will we run an AI OCR on it, but these will eventually turn into a Excel spreadsheet. At some point, when I redirect Ray's site, I'm hoping to have some kind of searchable database on there for folks to look up names and such like that. But I just wanted to let you guys know that this stuff does exist. Now, if you try going on the site right now and try looking it up and stuff like that, I have Tomino in my computer bag. I would be more than happy to give it to you because it's a mess trying to look it up. And then I was supposed to have an Uncle Sam photo pointing at you guys, but I ran out of time. You folks here tonight, maybe your friends, maybe your families, people have photos in their attics, basements, maybe negatives, film reels, maybe somebody took a cassette tape, maybe they interviewed their uncle or something like that worked in the mine. My business card's up there. I'd love to get a hold of you guys and digitize it so that for future generations can hold on to that information. So I just want that to take home with you guys tonight that hey, Maybe I have a photo somewhere, or this or that, or negative. Trust me, I can scan and do anything. I have the machinery to do all of it. So, I just want to let you guys know that.